The summer sun burned across the city skyline. Daniel Wright, a millionaire businessman and devoted father, believed his battles were only in the boardroom. But Sofia, his quiet young nanny from Europe, overheard a whisper in his own home. A whisper that opened Pandora's box, and threatened to unravel everything Daniel thought he knew about loyalty, family, and a past he could never escape. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from. And don't forget to hit subscribe for more stories like this. Let's begin. Daniel Wright had learned to live with pressure. It came with the tailored suits, the polished office, and the empire his late wife left behind. In public, he was a man of control, firm handshake, steady smile. But at home, in the quiet of his penthouse overlooking the summer haze of the city, he was just a father clinging to routine. Every evening, he read to his 8-year-old son, Evan, in the oak-lined library his wife once adored. Bookshelves stretched to the ceiling, but lately, the room felt colder. That night, Sofia, the young nanny from Europe who had been with them only a few months, slipped in to collect toys Evan had left scattered on the floor. She froze when voices drifted in from the hallway, low, urgent whispers. "Finish what we started years ago," one man muttered. "And this time, Wright won't see it coming." Sofia's pulse quickened. She knew Daniel's executives often met at the house, strategy sessions, late-night calls. But this was different. The tone wasn't business. It was betrayal. She held her breath, crouched behind the library's velvet chair as the voices faded down the corridor. When Daniel entered moments later, loosening his tie, he found Sofia pale, her hands trembling over a pile of Lego bricks. "What happened?" he asked. She looked at him, hesitated, then whispered. "Mr. Wright, someone in this house wants to destroy you." Daniel studied Sofia's face carefully. She wasn't the type for drama, quiet, polite, sometimes too shy for New York's pace. But now her voice shook with certainty. "Who did you hear?" he pressed. She shook her head. "Two men. I couldn't see them. They said something about finishing what they started. Like this wasn't new." Daniel's jaw tightened. It was a phrase that landed too close to the truth he'd buried for years, the suspicion that his wife's sudden car accident hadn't been an accident at all. He walked to the bar, poured a glass of water, and handed it to Sofia. "You tell no one about this. Not even Evan. Do you understand?" She nodded, though her eyes flicked nervously toward the door, as if shadows lingered just beyond it. That night, long after Sofia had gone to bed, Daniel sat alone in the library. A single lamp cast his reflection against the glass wall, the city lights glowing behind him. His mind replayed every boardroom setback, every unexplained leak of company data, every whisper of rivals circling like vultures. And now, words spoken inside his own home. On his desk sat a framed photo, his wife, Claire, smiling on a summer afternoon. He touched the glass. "They never stopped coming for you, did they?" From down the hall came the faint creak of a door. Daniel rose, silent, moving with the instincts of a man who had trusted too many wrong people. He stepped into the corridor, and froze. At the end of the hall, one of his most trusted executives, Deputy CEO Marcus Hale, was slipping out the back door. No explanation. No goodbye. Just gone into the night. By morning, Daniel had buried his suspicions beneath his usual mask. To the world, nothing had changed, the sharp suit, the confident nod as he walked into Wright Global's downtown headquarters. But inside, a question gnawed at him: why was Marcus leaving his house at midnight? He needed answers, not accusations. That afternoon, he invited Marcus into his office, all glass walls and city skyline, and spoke casually. "We're tightening expenses. I want a full report of your overseas accounts by tomorrow." Marcus smiled thinly, as though he expected the request. "Of course, Daniel. Anything to keep this ship afloat." His tone was smooth, but his eyes didn't hold steady. When Marcus left, Daniel called Sofia to the office under the pretense of helping with Evan's school paperwork. Instead, he lowered his voice. "Can you trust yourself to keep quiet?" "Yes," she whispered. "I need you to watch. Listen. If anyone in this house says anything strange again, you come to me." No hesitation. Sofia hesitated, then asked the question Daniel dreaded. "Do you think this has something to do with her?" The room went silent. Claire. His wife. Her death on that rain-slick road had always felt unfinished. The brakes had failed, but the car had been serviced the week before. The police had called it tragic coincidence. Daniel had called it fate. Until now. As Sofia left the office, Daniel sat back in his chair, staring at the city. If Marcus was involved, if anyone inside his circle had touched Claire's life, then this wasn't just sabotage of a company. It was murder left unfinished. That night, Daniel lingered in the office long after the others had gone home. Files lay open across his desk, export ledgers, supplier invoices, digital access logs. To most eyes, the numbers looked normal. But Daniel had built this company with Claire from the ground up. He knew its pulse. And the pulse was wrong. Hidden inside a string of invoices was a duplicate account. Small transfers, always under thresholds that triggered audits. A siphon bleeding his company slowly, death by 1,000 cuts. At the bottom of the authorization column was one familiar name, Marcus Hale. Daniel felt his chest tighten, but he forced his breath steady. Proof. At last. He reached for his phone to take a photo of the document, then stopped. Someone was already watching him. Through the glass wall, a reflection moved where no one should have been. A shadow shifted by the stairwell, then vanished. Daniel slipped the papers back into their folder, switched off the desk lamp, and walked out as though nothing had happened. When he returned home, Sofia was waiting in the kitchen, Evan asleep upstairs. Her face was pale. "I heard them again," she whispered. Two men, same voices. They said, Claire's death should have ended this. Daniel froze, his blood running cold. They mentioned her by name. Sofia nodded, eyes wide. "Mr. Wright. I think what killed your wife wasn't an accident. I think they're finishing the plan." Daniel gripped the counter, fighting the urge to shatter it with his fist. For years he had buried his doubts. Now the ghosts of the past weren't just shadows, they were living men, inside his company, plotting in his home. And they had spoken his wife's name. The next day the city simmered under a heavy summer heat, the kind that made tempers short and secrets harder to hide. Daniel left early for meetings, but Sofia stayed behind, tidying the library where Evan had built a fort from cushions. As she straightened the shelves, something slipped from between two volumes of Claire's old journals, a USB drive, small, black, nearly invisible. Sofia turned it over in her hand. It didn't belong to Evan. Curiosity gnawed at her. She carried it upstairs to the study and slid it into the computer. At first, only strings of numbers appeared. Then folders opened, scanned contracts, overseas transfers, internal memos. Each file stamped with Marcus Hale's login. One document froze her breath. A scanned accident report, Claire's accident. Notes in the margin read, clean finish. Estate division complete. Her hand flew to her mouth. They had kept records. The office door creaked suddenly. Sofia yanked the drive free, heart hammering, as Marcus himself stepped into the study. "What are you doing in here?" His voice was calm, too calm. Sofia's palms sweated. "Just cleaning, Mr. Hale. I thought Mr. Wright wanted the desk ready." Marcus's gaze lingered on her hands. He smiled faintly, but his eyes were sharp. "Careful where you wander. This house has corners you don't want to get lost in." When he finally left, Sofia locked herself in her room and slid the USB under her pillow, trembling. By the time Daniel returned that evening, she was waiting at the kitchen table, face pale but determined. She placed the drive in front of him. "Mr. Wright," she whispered. "I think this is the proof you've been searching for." Daniel locked his study door and slid the USB into his laptop. For hours, the screen glowed against the midnight dark as he clicked through file after file. Offshore accounts, rival contracts, confidential boardroom minutes. All of it tied back to Marcus. And then, the final blow, a memo dated 8 years earlier, the year Claire died. "Her refusal leaves us no choice. Once her estate is divided, Hale to assume control." Daniel's hand clenched into a fist. Claire's accident had been planned. When he emerged at dawn, he found Sofia asleep at the kitchen table, head resting on her arms. She stirred when he set a cup of coffee in front of her. "You were right," he said quietly. "This isn't just sabotage. It's murder. And it's personal." Before she could respond, the doorbell rang. A courier stood outside, sweating in the early summer heat, holding a plain envelope with Daniel's name. No return address. Inside, a single photograph, Sofia in the study, the glow of the computer screen on her face. A warning. Daniel's chest went cold. Someone inside had already marked her. That evening, as Evan played on the balcony, Daniel pulled Sofia aside. "You can leave now. I'll protect Evan and handle this." But Sofia shook her head, her voice firm despite the fear in her eyes. "No. If I walk away, they'll know I was the one who found it. And then you'll lose both your company and the truth about your wife." Daniel looked at her for a long moment. She was no longer just the quiet nanny. She had become his only ally. And now she was a target. 2 nights later, Sofia left the penthouse after dinner to walk to the corner market. The streets were still buzzing with the heavy pulse of summer, car horns, neon signs, the low thrum of a subway beneath the pavement. Halfway down the block, she felt it, the weight of eyes on her. A black sedan rolled slowly alongside the curb. Its tinted window cracked just enough for a voice to slip out. "Curiosity is dangerous, Miss Petrova." Her blood froze. She quickened her pace. The sedan eased forward, keeping time with her steps. "Leave right alone. Forget what you heard in that library. People who dig up the past, get buried with it." Then the car sped away, vanishing into the night traffic. Sofia stumbled back into the penthouse, shaking. Daniel met her at the door, alarm flashing across his face. "What happened?" She told him everything. For a long time, he said nothing, only poured her a glass of water, his jaw locked like stone. Finally, he spoke. "They've already moved against you. That means they're scared." He paced the room, energy sharp, dangerous. "We can't wait for the board to eat me alive. If Marcus killed Claire, if he's stealing this company, then the only way to stop him is to bring everything into the light." Sofia's voice trembled. "How? He controls half your board. And he's watching me." Daniel looked at the photo of Claire on the wall, then at his sleeping son. "Then we watch him closer. We make him believe the past is still his secret, until it's too late." For the first time, Sofia saw something in Daniel's eyes that frightened her more than the sedan. Not despair. War. Daniel moved carefully, the way a man does when he knows every step might be watched. He went through the motions at the office, meetings, handshakes, polite smiles, but behind his calm mask, he was hunting. Late one night, he called on an old friend, Richard Torres, a former investigative journalist turned private consultant. They met in a dim bar on the Lower East Side, the kind of place where no one asked questions. Daniel slid the USB across the table. "I need this verified, sourced, bulletproof." Torres plugged it into his encrypted tablet, brows furrowing as the files scrolled. "This isn't corporate theft," he muttered. "This is conspiracy tied to inheritance law, rival partnerships, even offshore shells. If this leaks. Daniel cut him off. I don't want leaks. I want the truth. But it has to be clean. Ironclad. No way for hail to bury it. Meanwhile, Sofia played her part at the house, quieter than ever. But she noticed everything: who entered the study, which phone calls Marcus took in the garden, the odd way his driver now lingered by the back entrance. One evening, as she tucked Evan into bed, the boy whispered, "Miss Sofia, why does Mr. Hale look at you like he wants you to leave?" Her heart twisted. Even Evan could sense it. When she returned to the kitchen, Daniel was waiting. His face was grave. Torres confirmed it. Marcus has been funneling funds for years, and the year Claire died, he signed documents that only make sense if he knew her estate would be split. It's the proof we needed. Sofia exhaled shakily. Relief flickered, then fear. So now what? Daniel's voice hardened. Now we force Marcus into the open. But once we do, they'll stop warning you, Sofia. They'll come for you. She swallowed. Then I'll stand with you when they do. The night before the quarterly board meeting, Daniel returned home to silence. Too much silence. Evan was asleep upstairs, but Sofia's room was empty. Her bag still by the bed. Her shoes still near the door. On the kitchen counter sat a single phone, hers, screen cracked, buzzing with an unread message. Daniel opened it with a trembling hand. She knew too much. If you want her alive, walk into tomorrow's board meeting alone. No police. No friends. M. Marcus. Daniel's chest burned with fury. He had expected a strike, but not this. Not Sofia. The next morning, the Wright Global boardroom gleamed with glass and steel, the summer sun glaring through the windows. Every director sat in place. Marcus at the head of the table, his suit crisp, his smile colder than marble. "Daniel," he said smoothly, "we've all seen the numbers. Your leadership has failed. For the sake of this company, I'm prepared to step in. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to resign quietly." Daniel stood at the far end, his hand steady though his heart hammered. "You want my company, Marcus. But this isn't about numbers. It's about Claire." Gasps echoed down the table. Marcus's smile faltered for the first time. "You remember Claire, don't you? The woman whose death you signed off on. The wife you couldn't break, so you buried her." The room erupted. Directors shifted, whispering in alarm. Marcus's mask cracked, rage bleeding through. "Careful, Daniel." But Daniel only leaned forward, sliding a folder across the table. "This is every transfer you made, every memo you thought was hidden. And copies are already in the hands of federal investigators. You can kill my company. You can kill me. But you will never silence the truth." For the first time, Marcus lost control. He slammed his fist against the glass. "You don't know what you've done." But Daniel did. And somewhere in the city, Sofia prayed he could finish what she had helped him start. Marcus's fury filled the boardroom, but his empire was already crumbling. Directors whispered into phones, some slipping out of their seats as Torres's evidence, timed perfectly, hit the morning news cycle. Wright Global Sabotage, Deputy CEO under investigation. Headlines blared on every screen. Marcus lunged across the table, but security burst through the doors. Not Daniel's men, federal agents. Torres had called them the moment Daniel stepped inside. "You think you've won?" Marcus spat as agents dragged him back. Claire's death was just the beginning. "You'll never," his words were cut off by steel cuffs. Daniel didn't watch him go. He was already moving, his phone buzzing in his pocket. A message from an unknown number, Pier 17. "Warehouse. Come alone." By dusk, Daniel stood in the abandoned docks, the summer air thick with salt and sweat. Inside the warehouse, Sofia was bound to a chair, a guard pacing nearby. Her eyes widened when she saw him. Daniel. The guard raised a weapon, but Daniel was faster. Years of buried rage surged through him. One strike, then another, until the man hit the ground. He rushed to Sofia, untying the ropes. "You came," she whispered, tears streaking her face. "Always," he said. By the time they stepped outside, flashing lights filled the dock. Federal agents swarmed the site, arrests piling up as Torres waved them over. The conspiracy wasn't just broken, it was finished. Days later, the board reinstated Daniel, but the company was no longer his obsession. On a quiet summer evening, he sat on the balcony with Evan asleep inside and Sofia beside him. "You uncovered the truth," she said softly. "You could have walked away." Daniel looked out at the skyline, the same view Claire once loved. "I didn't fight just for the company. I fought for her memory. For honesty. And for us." For the first time in years, the shadows of the past felt lighter. Sofia reached for his hand. "Then maybe this is the beginning." And in the glow of the city, Daniel Wright allowed himself to believe it. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more stories that stay with you.